Okay, we got Norbert Neumeister, digital forensic expert, getting ready to testify on those
Brian Neumeister, Your Honor.
Photoshop pictures that
Brian Neumeister.
had presented as evidence. So we are about to get the
He's not
truth
been sworn.
on whether or not these photos are Photoshopped or not.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to testify truthfully in this case and penalty of law?
About to get the truth now.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mr. Neumeister.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your full name for the record?
It's Norbert, Norbert, Brian, I go by Brian, Bryan, Neumeister, Neumeister.
Could you start by describing your educational background, please?
My educational background, well, I graduated from Cal State University Northridge 42 years ago with a degree in political science. From then on, I've been working professionally in photography, totally unrelated, for the past 42 years. And that would also include videography, audio, and a few other different binary-related tasks.
Where do you currently work?
I own USA Forensic.
What is USA Forensic?
USA Forensic is a digital forensics company. We are boutique. We're very small. We work. We have offices in Grosse Pointe Farms, Michigan, and in Phoenix, Arizona. We work with varying types of clients because to us, data is data and it takes no side. So we can be ending up working for prosecution, defense, law enforcement, the Innocence Project. We have a contract with the Department of Defense. We do classified and unclassified work. We've done classified work with various agencies. We've worked with DOJ, and I've worked in 23 countries as a photographer.
What's your title at USA Forensic?
CEO.
Did you also found USA Forensic?
Originally, in around 1990, it was called Skymeister, and that is because of the amount of helicopter photography time I have. About 10 years ago, we changed it to USA Forensic while still doing a lot of the same tasks.
And you described, I think, some of the entities that you work with. What kind of work do you do for those entities that you mentioned?
We do audio forensics, which is clarifying audio, for example.
All right, this blinks out for a second for some reason. It's the actual video that I'm streaming. But hold on, let me see if I can get past it. Okay, give it a second.
50 to 200 cases a year. In the last 4 years, we've done over 600 cases, and that would be in U.S. federal courts, U.S. district courts, various state courts throughout throughout the United States. We just wrapped up a case that was an overseas case, wrapped up yesterday. We do U.S. military court. We have a case coming up in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, so it's really very. I've done quite a few U.S. district court cases.
Have you testified as an expert in digital forensics before?
Yes, and what people sometimes don't understand is only about 2% of all cases go to trial. So 98% of the time, you're actually just doing the forensic work and getting it to the parties. And as we say, data is data. It really doesn't take a side. We don't have a narrative. So very often it's just providing the data for the attorneys to work with or the parties.
Have you ever been excluded from testifying as an expert regarding any work that you performed?
No, but you have to take into account that sometimes there might be curbs put on. For example, in this trial, there's certain boundaries. Or if you're working with a proper or with a attorney that is not very familiar with electronics. And the thing is, again, they teach Latin in law school, not binary. And binary is the universal language these days. So sometimes in the legal system, it's a little bit hard to explain to attorneys what exactly we're doing. So we try to break it down and make that work.
What is digital forensics?
Digital forensics is anything that you are using, like your television set, your cell phone, your computer, anything that runs off of binary information that has coding in it.
How long have you worked in digital forensics?
Well, I actually started off in analog, so it's been 40 some odd years. I started off as a cameraman. My first cameras were film cameras. When I was a kid, my dad was a director of sales and sales service administration for the NBC television network on the West Coast. So I grew up around television cameras. My first cameras were cameras people might not have heard of, Leica, Hasselblad, cameras like that. I trained with some of the best photographers around at the time, William Wallner, Niall Latham, really excellent photographers. And I started shooting videotape from helicopters, and I logged about 14,700 hours of video. And at that time, oddly enough, since we were the only helicopter, a television helicopter, we were the only helicopter in Phoenix. At the time, the sheriff's department did not have a helicopter. The police department did not have a helicopter, nor did Aerovac. So we ended up doubling up, being a news crew as well as an air rescue crew. So as far as forensics, analog probably from 1980 to 1990, and digital from 1990 through current.
How'd you get started in it?
Really by osmosis. I started in the production field. I usually don't do that much TV work anymore. I did shoot part of an episode, a program called Planet Earth for the BBC last year. I don't normally do television anymore. It's just 99% forensics. But I got started because very often as working in a helicopter, we'd be asked to work for a police department in a rescue or a chase or whatever the situation might be. And since I'd be videotaping it, they would ask me to break it down frame by frame and analyzing it using what's called a time-based corrector in the day. And so word got out that I could do unusual things because I'm pretty good with machines. And it just ended up, more and more people started calling, and it just became a full-time job.
Have you received any professional certifications in forensics?
Yes, but again, most hackers and people who do interesting work don't have any certifications, because the certification is usually like a week-long course. I've been doing this stuff 42 years. My partner, Matt Erickson, he's actually a...
Objection, Your Honor, to the partner who's not testifying to his qualifications on relevance.
Sustained objection.
Yep. Mr. Neumeister, can you just describe which professional certifications you have received?
For cell phones, Oxygen, which is a program similar to Celebrite. But these are programs that are used by law enforcement and by private parties to extract data from cell phones that has been deleted, or which is critical in a lot of cases, deleted data, or just to what we call image a cell phone. In other words, get every bit of data that's possible on a cell phone. And again, every cell phone is different. The next would be in cell tower forensics.
Are you a member of any professional associations in your field?
Yes, the IEEE, which is the International Engineering Society, and the reason I belong to that is about 40% of the world's white papers on electronics are published through IEEE. So they have a huge database on anything from microwave technology to telephone transmission technology. Anything that I might work with, they might have a white paper on it. Also, with the Audio Engineering Society, AES, I'm a member of that. I lecture to AES There's a few others, but again, they're just mainly to have a repository of information.
Have you received any honors or awards?
Yes, I've received about 80 honors and awards. I have, for videography, I've got a total of 12 Emmy Award statues, but I've been the principal in 39 Emmy Awards, which means I've written the music for the program, and the program has won the Emmy Award for music, but it was given to the production company, which happens a lot. I won for Best Editing. I won for Best Ace Editing, which is computer editing. Best Sound. I've won. I've done the music to a piece that won the Golden Lion at the Cannes Film Festival. I've done music to a piece that won the gold at the Calgary Film Festival. I've got a lot of awards from Associated Press and different companies from doing documentaries and news.
Have you published any works in the field of digital forensics?
Yes, and they're mostly articles, about a half dozen of them or so. We don't have much time, and I don't usually do it, but it was basically on most of my work deals around clarifying or authenticating. So it was basically the things I published were on clarification of digital files.
Have you appeared on TV as an expert in digital forensics?
Yes.
Where?
CBS, NBC, ABC, BBC, Discovery Channel, a number of different things.
Any particular examples of things that you've spoken on TV about?
Boston bombings, how the frame averaging was done on that, sort of things like that. Again, we get calls a lot, but I don't speak specifically about cases. I just speak about technology.
Have you given any public lectures in the field of digital forensics?
Yes, we get asked quite often, but due to our schedule, it's a little rough. We do what's called Inns of Court. We speak in front of private investigator groups. We do attorneys continuing legal education. Audio Engineering Society. We try to do a few a year, and that's about what our schedules will allow given our time.
Your Honor, at this point, I'd like to tender Mr. Neumeister as an expert in the field of digital forensics. Any objection?
No objection.
All right, so moved. Mr. Neumeister, turning to the work you've done in this case, what have you done?
I was asked to analyze the photographs of purported injuries to Miss Heard.
And what was the purpose of that analysis?
To authenticate photos or to review and see if they were altered in any way.
What did you analyze to reach your opinions?
Well, I analyzed groups of photos that were submitted by Ms. Heard's legal team.
What work did you do to analyze those photographs?
Well, normally you start off by looking at what's called the EXIF data. The EXIF data is the binary data that's encoded into a photograph. It tells you, for example, if the flash fired, what the operating software version was of the cell phone or camera that shot a photo, what type of lens was used, what the f-stop was. There's literally about 1,000 lines of code in the EXIF data on a JPEG photo. So we would start with an EXIF editor or an EXIF viewer.
Anything else that you looked at?
Yes, when we're dealing with RGB cameras, which are red, green, and blue channel cameras, which would be a cell phone or a basic home camera. They're based on RGB channels. We would do four types of scopes. We would do a vector scope. We do a luminance scope. We do a waveform scope, and then what's called an RGB parade. And those scopes analyze different things. The vector scope analyzes where the different types of colors are headed. For example, it's broken up into reds, magenta, different areas on a scope. We would take a look at that to see if there's anything out of the normal for the type of camera being used. In other words, would there be above a certain percentage of chroma? And chroma means color saturation.
Objection, Your Honor. Outside the scope, we can approach.
All right, you can approach.
Amber Heard did not know what she was doing when she was, creating all these lies and fabricating evidence, and she didn't think it through. She didn't think it through. In this day and age, so much technology, so many advances in technology. I mean, you can't fake a whole lot of stuff and not get caught. So she really didn't think this through. So I don't know what the outcome is. I mean, this is a civil lawsuit, so it's not a criminal case. I don't know what that means as far as perjury is concerned. I guess we're gonna find out.
Mr. Neumeister, based on the analysis you performed in this case, have you formed any opinions?
Pardon?
Based on the analysis you've done in this case, have you formed any opinions?
Yes.
What are they?
Well, three basic ones. One is quite a number of the photos had been through a photo, at least one, possibly two.
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation, which photos is he referring to? We have to go through this one by one.
One's in evidence. Mr. Neumeister, in terms of the photos that you looked at and that you formed opinions about, do you understand if they've been submitted as evidence in this case?
Yes.
Okay. And what conclusions have you formed about those?
Same objection, Your Honor. That doesn't cure the issue of the objection. We have to go through this. Which photos is she talking about? Which one's in evidence? What exhibit numbers? That's the basis of the
We're
objection.
talking generally about opinions right now, Your Honor, and we're going to get into some specifics.
I think we have to go straight to the specifics.
Okay.
Our lawyers are trying to delay the inevitable. Let the man talk.
Mr. Neumeister, have you prepared a demonstrative that aids in your testimony with respect to any of the photos that you looked at in this case?
Yes.
I'd like to pull up plaintiff's 1303. Your Honor, if I might approach.
Let's see.
Your Honor, I would again object. We can approach to discuss
Okay,
it.
I'll approach. Tom, can we pull up Defendant's Exhibit 178, which has been admitted into evidence? Mr. Neumeister, does this photo appear to be one that you have analyzed as part of your analysis in this case?
There were many versions of this photo. I would say there were dozens of different versions with different chromatic values, different file sizes, different physical sizes. Some had been through Photos 1 or Photos 3, which are photo editing software programs.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to show Mr. Neumeister's demonstrative, Plaintiff's Exhibit 1303.
All right. Any other objection?
I would object again, Your Honor, because the photograph in 170A is not in evidence.
All right.
Or, yeah, I mean, the photograph is in evidence. None of the photographs he wishes to show the jury are in evidence.
1303 is in evidence over objection. I'm not in evidence, I'm sorry, as a demonstrative.
Just as a demonstrative.
I'm sorry.
Could we go to
Published in the
1303,
jury,
please? And Mr. Neumeister, what does this demonstrative show about the photos that you analyzed?
Well, they appear to be similar. However, if you look below at the file sizes, one on the left is 712 kilobytes. The one in the middle is 489 kilobytes. And the one on the right is 524 kilobytes. Now, what's unusual about that is these photos will not digitally fingerprint with each other. They won't hash. In other words, forensically, they don't match. But the thing is, you could say, well, it was sent through email, maybe it's a different size. The file sizes, for example, would be possibly, you can select the file size, you send a photo, but there's no way to authenticate any photo that was presented in the way the evidence was collected.
And so what conclusions do you draw from that?
Well, this is just three of many of the same type of photos that are all different sizes and have different chromatic, which means color.
Objection, Your Honor. We just had a ruling on this.
All right. Sustained objection.
Mr. Neumeister, stick to your opinions that relate specifically to what you analyzed about the EXIF data, please.
All three of these photos had to go through some type of transformation to change sizes.
We can take that one down. You mentioned Photos 1.5 and Photos 3.0 earlier, I believe.
Photos.
What is that?
Photos 3 and Photos 1.5 are editing programs that Macintosh or Apple put out with their product. It's for editing photos. In other words, you would put a photo in and you would change the colors, or you would crop it, or you would clarify it by enhancing, for example, the sharpening, or you could darken it. But when you save a photo through an editing program, you leave a mark on the EXIF data.
And what is the EXIF data?
The EXIF data is the data that is embedded in a photograph that tells you a lot about the photograph. And again, in the early days when we were using film cameras, you would write down the f-stop, which is the light setting. You would write the type of lens you use, the time of day, the type of film stock, the type of filters you're using. Now with digital cameras, that's done electronically, and there's about 1,000 lines of code, of which 50 are probably important, that tell you what the camera was doing.
So what's the significance of EXIF data in your photo analysis?
Well, in this situation, I can see that normally where the operating system of the camera would be, which means the version that of operating system the phone is running on, it would normally say something like, I'll just throw out an arbitrary number, 9.1.3 operating system for iOS, which is Apple's iPhone operating system. Instead of saying that, it says software Photos 3.0 or Photos 1.0. That means that the photo had to be rendered, which means composited together in an editing program.
Did you prepare a demonstrative that shows some of your analysis of some of the EXIF data of the photos in this case?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Can we pull up 1304, please? Your Honor, may I approach? You okay? Permission to publish as a demonstrative, Your Honor.
Any objection? Any objection, Mr.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. My
She wishes to
co-counsel's
publish
talking.
it
I'm so sorry.
as a demonstrative.
No objections demonstrative.
All right, thank you. We'll publish it as 1304, just as a demonstrative.
And Mr. Neumeister, are these images in this demonstrative excerpts from the report you prepared in this case?
Yes, yeah.
And what do they show?
On this particular photo, and on all of them, it shows the first few lines of EXIF data, the ones that would be most important for this photograph. So, for example, things you would see, the very top line would be the make of phone. It's an Apple iPhone 6. And then the resolution is 72 pixels per inch, 72 to 1. And instead, where it says software on a normal iPhone photo, it would, instead of saying Photos 3, it would say the software version, for example, 9.3.1. And then you've got the date and the time of the photo below that, which is really easy to change in an EXIF editor. And below that, you have things like the like the flash. You've got the exposure type, how long the exposure was. So what you just highlighted there again was the date and time. So that's universal time code minus whatever area you're in the world.
Anything else you want to show us with this demonstrative?
Yeah, just below that, if you look, there's some things that would say, for example, a directly photographed image. That is not going to be necessarily accurate once it's been through an editor. It will always pretty much say that. So when you're looking at scene type or auto exposure, these are things that really don't matter all that much. What would matter is, for example, if you're taking notes, the focal length would be important. The pattern of metering, things like that to a photographer would be important. And again, this is just a few lines, and the reason I put these in there was just to explain a bit what EXIF data is. The actual thing I'm trying to point out is the fact that instead of an operating system, it shows the editing program that was used on this photo.
Are there additional photos that you did this analysis for?
Yes, many.
Can we scroll to the next page, please, Tom? Is there anything about this photo that you noted as part of your analysis, Mr. Neumeister?
Yes, again, it's right there you've got Photos 3.0 on that particular photo. And I think, we pretty much covered what this stuff is, but again, you see the Photos 3.0. And again, this could not come out of an iPhone this way. This would go into a computer, be edited, and rendered through the photo editor. And this would then be embedded in the EXIF data.
Do you have other photos in this demonstrative?
Yes.
All right, can we scroll to the next page?
Same thing. You've got up here on the top, you've got the Photos 3.0. And this is throughout a lot of the photos that are in evidence, or versions of the photos in evidence. We're gone through Photos 3.0 or Photos 1.5, an earlier version.
Can we scroll to the next page, please, Tom? And what about this one?
Same thing, Photos 3.0. And again, in a photo editing app, you can do an awful lot of things. So when you see Photos 3.0, first of all, you know it's not anywhere near an original. There's going to be compression artifacts because it's a JPEG file.
Also state objection. Next question.
Can we move on to the next page of this demonstrative, please?
And again, same thing. You've got the Photos app.
Okay. And I believe there's one final photo in this demonstrative. What about this one?
Again, if you look up there, it says Photos 3.0 on that particular photo.
All right. We can take that one down. Your Honor, I have a little bit left. I don't know if you wanted to.
All right, you want to take our afternoon? Let's go ahead and take our afternoon recess. Just do not discuss the case and don't do any outside research. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and let this is part more.
Right, so let's just come back at 4 o'clock. All right. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to break, so I'm going to cut this off, put it as part 1, and I'll start part 2 in a few minutes.